Powerful piece there. I want to bring in Avi Meir, the former editor-in-chief of Jerusalem Post. Avi, really appreciate you being with us. We have been seeing throughout the hours from our correspondents just scenes of grieving across Israel against this backdrop, Avi, of incoming rockets, really. A reminder that the fight against Hamas and Hezbollah in the last, 41 minutes, the Houthis in Yemen too, is far from over. In fact, it rages on. Just your assessment of where we are a year on.
Well, Lisa, about a year ago, exactly a year ago, actually, today, I wrote a piece that appeared on the front page of the next day's paper calling this Israel's September the 11th attack. And at the time, that was the only analogy we could imagine. But I remember the September 11th attacks. I'm sure you do as well. Yeah. I was a high school student in the greater Washington, D.C. area. I remember the trauma of that day. But I remember the day ending and this healing process starting where we all sort of were able to move on as a nation. The challenge in Israel is that we haven't been able to move on. The trauma is still present in our lives every single day. 101 hostages remain in Gaza. We don't know whether they're alive or dead. Tens of thousands of Israelis remain displaced from their homes, not knowing whether they'll ever return to those homes. Thousands upon thousands of families are mourning, grieving the loss of their loved ones, grappling with horrific injuries, wounds, emotional trauma. And so that, coupled with, as you said, the reality of an ongoing war, means that we are still mired in the trauma of that day, and we don't know when we're going to emerge from it.
Yeah, and like you said, it's Israel right now is a country at war and a country facing a war, in fact, having on many fronts. And I really want to tap into your sources, your contacts, to get a sense of the mood just across the country, of course, as the region kind of teeters on the brink of a regional war. Where do Israelis, Avi, where do they stand on not just the wars that are being waged and the methods being used, but the support? Is there support, I wonder, for retaliation against Iran whenever it comes, if it comes, from Prime Minister Netanyahu? Give us a sense of the mood.
Well, Israelis are an extremely resilient people, and they're also quite determined to ensure their own safety, to ensure that those people who have been evacuated from their homes will be able to return free of the threat of rocket fire and missiles by Hezbollah in the north or Hamas in the south. And so there is widespread support for whatever military action is necessary to secure Israel's boundaries and ensure the safety of the Israeli people. At the same time, there's also tremendous support in Israeli society for some kind of a deal, unfortunately, with Hamas that will entail the release of probably thousands of convicted Palestinian terrorists in order to bring those 101 hostages home. I think that was brought into extremely stark relief just a few weeks ago when the bodies of those 6 hostages were found in Gaza. Those 6 young people who had been murdered by Hamas has, I think, produced this groundswell support in Israel for some kind of a measure in order to bring those people home pretty much at no matter what cost.
Yeah, and we've heard, in fact, Israel defense ministers say that everything is on the table, and what relates, of course, to Israel's response to that barrage of missiles that we saw raining down on Israel. Do you have a sense of how Israel may respond to this? What do Israelis want to see here?
Look, at the end of the day, all roads lead back to Tehran. Iran, the Iranian regime, has been beyond, I think, a lot of this activity. We see them as being a key sponsor of Hamas, of course, the primary backer of Hezbollah. And of course, they themselves have become directly involved by lobbing these hundreds of missiles at Israeli territory. So there will be an Israeli response. I think that is fairly clear. Israel has said so. The Americans have said so. There will be dire consequences to this very dangerous and escalatory Iranian action. And we have to see what can be taken, what steps are necessary at this point to ensure that there is a severe enough response, but one that doesn't draw an even further escalation and a further deterioration of the situation in this region.
Yeah, indeed, that is a concern. Avi Meir, appreciate your insight. Thanks very much, Avi. We're going to take a short break.